Joe Mario goes over, yeah.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room YouTube channel. There's been some juicy news coming from Liverpool recently. We're going to be talking all about it, but first and foremost, we've got some guests to obviously discuss the news with as well. So first and foremost, Mihai, how are you doing?
Very good, very well.
And Race, how are you doing? We were on stream last time, but some more news has broke. Fabinho potentially leaving. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, definitely finally got some news going on here, so a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and Harmony, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
It is indeed. So starting off, obviously the biggest news here is Jordan Henderson. A lot of opinions is divided the fan base. I'd say a lot of people want him gone. A lot of people still want him to be here. What's your take on it, Mihai? Do you think it's a good thing for him to move on? And what do you think of the whole sort of, I'd say, political aspect to it? Do you think it's a good move for Henderson for a personal perspective? What's your thoughts?
Not quite sure about that, Damon, in the comments right there, but it's honestly, I'm a little bit I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not sure, because in a way, yeah, I think we wouldn't be too affected if Hendo leaves. I think especially if we make 2 or 3 more signings in the field, I think we're fine, but to us, obviously, there's more about it than his minutes on the pitch. Hendo was Mr. Liverpool for the past few seasons, and he's been here. He's been lifting the trophies that we've seen, the big trophies that we've won in the last few years. So I think that's more that has more to do with it than the fact of of his minutes or whatever. I think personally, I think it very much depends on what happens with Fabinho. I know that's not our topic, and we won't necessarily get into it now. But I think it wouldn't be wise for us to sell both of them at the moment, because we've already had Milner go, and then Keita, and then Ox, and now if we lose both Hendo and Fabinho in the same window, and it's all 5 of them, I think it's a bit too many changes all at once. I know it's kind of ironic now thinking that we all wanted new midfielders in, and I still believe that, and I still want us to sign 2 or 3 more depending on who leaves. But yeah, selling both Hendo and Fabinho, I don't think it's wise right now. And about the political stance, yeah, I think it's a bit, I don't know, I don't want to, I have to choose my words carefully here. I don't want to say necessarily that it's a bit hypocritical, but he's a bit, I know a friend of mine, a City fan of mine, told me, a friend of mine who's a City fan told me that he thinks Hendo's a bit of a hypocrite if he goes to the Saudi League. Now, I know that's a bit of a, I'm not sure if I would necessarily use that word, but yeah, I think with his stance, obviously not only on the pitch with wearing the rainbow armband, and he was more involved off the pitch as well in social stuff like such as this one. So yeah, I don't know. I think it will be off for me personally to see him go in the Saudi League. I always thought he was gonna maybe go back to Sunderland at some point or something like that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of the same as it was with Stevie. I think it's his choice, and I think it's obviously, maybe it has to do with what's been discussed with Jurgen, with the thing we've seen on Twitter with Jurgen telling him that he might get reduced minutes this season. Maybe he just wants to play more. Maybe he had his ego was hit at the moment, and it's just a bit of a tantrum now. But yeah, I think it depends. I wouldn't want to see both him and Fabinho gone.
Yeah, and Harmony, what's your take on it? Obviously, there's a supposed leaked conversation between Jurgen Klopp and Henderson saying Henderson's not really going to get minutes here, so Klopp will be open for him to move on if a club does want Henderson. But even with the whole LGBT stuff, a lot of the community aren't happy with what Henderson's been supposedly doing, agreeing to move on. What's your take on the whole transfer saga?
The first thing I'll say is be careful what you wish for. just like Eminem said, it's kind of what a lot of people wanted. They were begging for it a lot. I've seen a lot of communities and a lot of YouTubers, LFC YouTubers that are speaking about how they really wanted him to go, that we need to get rid of Hendo. He's not going to do anything for the squad. He's not going to be any use to us. And it's just so funny that within 24 hours, how the opinion changes. Everyone's like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're about to lose Hendo. Oh my gosh, we can't lose him. He has to stay. And it's just ironic. I think I would let him go, even though I really don't want to. But if the conversations that we are seeing online going around in Twitter saying that he's going to get reduced minutes and he's going to be participating that much, I think it's better to let him go if he really wants to go. To go finish off the rest of his career in Saudi Arabia. He's given us everything. He's won everything with us, and there's not really much that he needs to prove to anybody, to be honest with you. So I feel like he can go. It's just that who do we replace him with? Who do we bring in to kind of fill in that body? And I also agree that we should not let go of Fabinho. I think that is something that we should be like, no, we're not letting him go. We have to wait until next season. That's when we let him go, because I feel like he's going to be so essential and so important to the team in terms of embedded in the new, CDM that we might bring in, because we can't bring in a new CDM because that means we'll have 3 new midfielders that are going to play, and depending on their age group, that the age that we're going to go for, they might be young age group and naive, and we're going to get to the part in the season where we're going to see what happened to Arsenal happen to us. Obviously, it's going to be different because we still have players that are experienced, that have been there, that have won it, and we have a better manager, but it still doesn't excuse the lack of experience of being in that moment, the intense moment, the moment where you don't know, like you need someone to come in and just calm everybody down. But listen, calm down, just go back to normal playing, just move the ball. And I think that is something that Fabinho can bring and something that I feel like Hendo can bring, but obviously he wants to go. So if he goes, we need to keep Fabinho there to just kind of keep that midfield engaged and strong, because if he goes and we bring someone else in, he's not gonna be able to do that, because it's like me shouting at you like, bro, go do this, go do it. You're gonna look at me like, bro, we're the same age. Don't talk to me like that. You know what I mean? There's gonna be some sort of ego going on, and then that's gonna cause some sort of confusion in that midfield. So I think Fabinho is essential. He has to stay. Hendo can go because we still have a lot of captains in the team and a lot of leaders. But I think Fabinho has to stay just for the fact of making sure that he embeds in the new CDM that's going to take over for him. So he knows what to do. He knows what's expected of him. And he knows the standard that he has to play with every single game that he's going to be on that pitch. So, yeah, that's my opinion on it, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was quite a big thing with Fabinho, the news coming that, which side was it? I can't remember. A Saudi Arabian team bidded 40 million for him, or will bid 40 million for him. And at first, even I was guilty of it. I was saying, we take it immediately, it's 40 mil. He's kind of past that peak now. But when you think about it logically, like Harmony brought up as well, Ray, we could touch on it. Can you really afford to lose your entire starting midfield and try and transition that into next season? There's a comment here that brought it up as well. Jay Muse, thanks for your compliment on my top earlier as well. If Liverpool lose 2 to 3 midfielders, I think they will want more experience to replace them. At the moment, we're only really linked with Lavia, Ray. So do you think if we do lose Henderson, Fabinho, Liverpool are actually going to break the bank and sign an experienced midfielder to play in DM? Or do you think Lavia is going to be enough for us to sort of compete for next season? And a question to the comments as well, I guess you could throw. What do you think our realistic goal is for next season if we potentially lose Fabinho and Henderson together?
Yeah, I think, I'm agree with most of what Harmony said there. I mean, you can't really lose a lot of midfield and then replace them with, kind of more inexperienced players. You look at kind of our, players we have would play that number 6 role right now. Of course, Fabinho's there right now, and, by Chedich and then Tyler Morton, and if you lose Fabinho and you be down to those 2 guys, and, we really saw just half a season from Chedich. We all, I'm sure we all rate him highly, but is he ready to right away take on the full time is our, first choice, in that spot. And then, behind him, obviously have some question marks there. So I like the idea of bringing in, another midfielder with Fabinho, because at least with Fabinho, you have that at least you know what you're getting from him. Maybe he's certainly, past his best days, but still can put in a good shift every now and then, maybe not relied upon as much anymore, but at least you have that, that stability in the position. And I think if you just kind of get rid of him and offload him, I think that's a very dangerous, game to play because of, the expectations that we have, with this team. We're still, I'm sure looking to win all the trophies, in every competition that we're in. We can't just take a risk at, selling off some of these players and not having really a backup plan for it. And, with Fabinho, that price tag goes about, 40 million. Maybe that's as much as you're going to get for him in coming from a Saudi Arabian club. But I know we always want to, it'd be good to make some money in transfers out, but we still have to think about the team that we have. We can't just completely, think about making a profit and whatnot. We still have a team on the field that needs to be sorted out. So yeah, I think if you lose, both Henderson and Fabinho, that would make me, nervous. I think I've spoke on earlier this week about Henderson. We all kind of agree with, the ability on the field. I think we're kind of past that. We won't be so sad to see him go. And then with the captaincy and all that, we have a very strong locker room, a bunch of leaders in the team already. So I think, replacing his leadership won't be too much of an issue. But then losing Fabinho on top of that, I think you really have a conundrum in midfielder where you really need to, whoever you buy, because I would think that if they would get rid of both Henderson and Fabinho, that there would be at least, another midfielder coming in, hopefully two more. But, who those players could be. And of course, we've got, linked to Lavia and then, possibly some other ones out there. It would be very unsettling, and make me a little nervous for that position if we lose both of them.
Is my audio fine, by the way?
Yeah.
It's a little spotty there.
Yeah, a little spotty, yeah.
Someone might taking over on the stream. Next topic, I'll come back in a couple of minutes. Anyway, for another topic, Moises Caicedo. Someone want to discuss about him. Mihai, you can discuss.
Okay. Let's discuss Caicedo.
Have the floor, Mihai.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it when I saw the news about Fabinho and Hendo possibly leaving. I immediately started to think about Caicedo again, because I think if Fabinho leaves, you definitely want a DM to come in and be able to play in the starting 11 immediately. And I don't think Lavia is necessarily at that level yet. I don't think you can bring Lavia in and just put him in the starting midfield and just think, yeah, that's gonna work, in the whatever kind of game that we have. And I like what Harmony said earlier about, at a later point in the season, we're gonna risk too much if we're gonna, push every new player in and just play a brand new midfield every three days. So Caicedo is definitely a guy who would come in and just, help us take over the midfield in pretty much every game that we play.
Yeah.
But there's one problem that we all know about, and that's that we won't pay the money that we need to pay in order to get him in. Yeah. And that's something that we go back to pretty much every time we're linked to someone who we would think would be a good fit, but just cost a bit more. I don't know. I've seen that Brighton value him at about 100 million. I guess you could get a lower fee, but I don't see us paying even 80 for him. So
yeah,
I just don't see it happening. So yeah, Harmony, I think you.
I think everything you said is so true. I think the main issue that's going to come down when it comes to Caicedo, even if we sell both players, it's not going to be enough for us to get him. And I think Brighton would take a 80 mil bid plus add-ons so they can add up to that 100 mil, value that they have for him. But I believe that it goes back to the point that, when someone in the comments said we have better odds winning the lottery than Liverpool paying for that sort of amount, and it's so true because we've seen it. We walked away from Bellingham and he was going to be cheaper because of the whole Euro situation. And you really think that Liverpool is going to pay 80 mil or 100 mil in pounds, not even in euros. This is gonna be in pounds. So there's no there's no like you can pay 80 mil and it comes up to 100. It's literally you got to pay that in pounds, and that's the only way you're gonna get the player. Nah, I don't think so. I think that is the only problem they're gonna have. I think the player, if it really came down to it between us and Chelsea, he would choose Liverpool, because not only are we much more organized, that we have the better squad, we got the better manager, and we are playing Europa League as well. So it kind of gives us that leg up on Chelsea. You know, we have so many things going for us right now. We got so many young players coming in. They're buying into the project. They're buying into the process and everything. And I feel like having McAllister there as well, that's going to be someone he's familiar with. That's going to be someone that he's used to playing with. So he's going to feel more enticed to come to Liverpool. But the problem that we're going to have is, are we going to cough up the money to pay for him? And that is where it's just going to be like, forget it. Let's not even look at it. Let's not even worry about that anymore. That's why it's so essential to keep Fabinho. And I know I saw Paul, you made a comment earlier on saying that obviously Klopp doesn't want, if anyone doesn't want to be there, Klopp will say, let them leave. I don't want you here. You gotta be, if you want to be here, you stay. If you don't, then you can leave. I get that, but at the same time, sometimes you gotta just say to a player, you know what, you're too important this season. I need you. I can't let you go. I know you want to leave, but I need you. It's so essential that Fabinho stays, because if we don't keep Fabinho, it's going to be an absolute mess in that midfield, because you got 3 players that they got to bed into the league. That's number 1. And then number 2, they got to bed into the system. And then they got to gel with the rest of the team. That is really, really, really big things that's going to impact the team, because that is our spine. If that breaks down, there's nothing that's going to work from the front line, from the back. Is not going to be connected at all. And that's what we're going to have problems, and we're going to be even worse than what we were last season. And I don't want to imagine what we be even worse than we were last season, because that's just a mess. So, yeah, that's where I stand with it. I would love Caicedo, but the problem is we're not going to get him. We're not going to get him. Yeah.
Definitely. Race, have you had a take on this? I've not heard any of it. So.
I was the last one here to chime in. So, yeah, I mean, when you think about the 80 million or the 100 million, price tag that you see at Caicedo, I agree that, that would just be, I think that would price us out a bit for one player. But I think if you're able to, I'd rather have 2 players for that price than 1 player. I think there'd be just more value in that, especially if, we lose Fabinho, it'd be kind of a more settling to have a couple of players come in. And I've said this before, about Klopp, and, when Klopp, gets transfers in, it's rare that, these transfers really, flop or don't perform. I have trust in Klopp, and whoever he buys and targets, will turn them into an 80 million, $100 million player.
Yeah.
And so I think if you give him a couple of midfielders kind of on a lower rate, lower priced fee, like whoever it may be, I would have faith that at least one of those players would turn out, if not both. So I think, just kind of assessing the value in bringing in multiple players versus spending big on one player who had a really good season for Brighton, definitely, and could become a great player. I just think that bringing in multiple guys would be good. And, I think what you're kind of paying with the price tag for Caicedo is a little bit of the potential as well. Maybe he's not worth 80 million right now, but certainly down the road, he could be worth that. And it seems like Chelsea have kind of, narrowed in on this. I know there hasn't been much noise on a progressing deal or anything. We're just kind of on the outside looking in. So I think Caicedo at this point is a little unrealistic, even if we do, get rid of, Fabinho and whatnot. So, yeah.
Definitely. There's a comment here as well. Jamie said Fabrizio did say he isn't really negotiating with anyone else except for Chelsea. I feel like Charlie stitched me up with this clickbait stream here. Fabrizio said he's only negotiating with Chelsea. Can we see Liverpool realistically spending 100 million on Caicedo, given we weren't willing to spend around that much on Jude Bellingham? Probably not. But another player we have been linked with previously throughout this window, Manu, Kone. The links are back now from Christian Falk, or CF Bayern on Twitter. He said Liverpool's new sporting director, Jorg, I'm not going to pronounce his surname, is still keeping an eye on Manu Kone's situation. Did any of you guys get a chance to watch the World Cup, or World Cup Euro under 20? Sorry. What are your thoughts on Manu Kone? And do you think he'll be a great addition? Obviously, he's already had that injury scare that he picked up during those under 20 Euros or under 21 Euros. So what's your thoughts on the situation? We'll throw it to Harmony.
I would, you know what, he'll be so ideal to replace Fabinho if he came in. But the only problem is his injury history. This is not his first major injury. He's had one in recent past years while he was playing, and there were big injuries. And especially for a young player like that to be having those big injuries in a such essential part of the pitch, it's not good. It's not looking good, especially the way Klopp is going to have him running, the way Klopp is going to have him training. He's not going to last, and that's the only problem why I wouldn't want to go for him. If it wasn't for the injuries, I would sign him up straight away. But because of that injury that he got in the Euros, I think that is what's kind of, I don't know. Yes, we're going to keep an eye on him, but I don't think we're actually going to go in and actually put in a bid for him because we don't know when he's going to come back and what condition he's going to be in, if he's going to be the same player, and what effect is that going to have within our team as well? Because imagine we bring him in and within 2 months he gets injured. Who's going to be playing there? And that's why I keep going back to it. We can't sell Fabinho. I don't care what he says. If we have to lock him down in a basement somewhere so he can't leave until the transfer window's over, let's do it because he is so essential for this team in terms of when we bring in another CDM, he's going to be the guy that's going to teach them. And we need someone in there that's going to be a leader to make sure that these young midfielders, these new midfielders are in check. And the person that's going to replace him, he knows what to expect. He knows the standards. And if you don't have someone to teach you how to do that, who's going to, that, you know what I mean? You're going to be a deer in the headlight. You're not going to know what to do. So that I'm going to keep going back to that point. Fabinho has to stay. I'm sorry. He has to stay. He cannot leave. I'm sorry. If I have to fly over to Germany and lock him down myself, I'll do it. Just so he can stay for one more season. So, yeah.
Yeah, viewers. So Harmony loves Fabinho. You can sense it. Mihai, what's your thoughts even on this situation here? Florentino Luis, his name's been floating about recently as well. I've seen that Seko Fofana. What's your thoughts on potentially signing Manu Kone as well? And Fabinho, I'm going to actually agree with you there as well, Harmony. Yeah, I think keep him. I think 60 million plus I'd accept the transfer just because of how old he is. But for that experience, it's sort of invaluable at the same time. If he's there training Romeo Lavia, you've got that experience, and he can also rotate with him. We know the main reason why Fabinho's not been performing is because he's absolutely been running to the ground. He's played every single match, all our minutes, and if he does have that rotation, maybe he can find that form back. But what's your take on that DM spot at the moment, Mihai? Do you want to see any incomings or what's your stance on Fabinho too?
I actually was about to say exactly what David said in the comments. I think that if Fabinho stays, then we can bring in Kone or Lavia or someone like that who can grow under Fabinho, and I think that's where I also agree with Harmony. I think if we buy another young CDM in like Lavia or Kone, then you have him and Bajcetic, one of those two, and Bajcetic who can grow under Fabinho in 1 or 2 seasons, probably one. We'll see, whatever. But that's exactly the point, that they need a few seasons to grow. And I think under Fabinho and seeing him perform the role that he has performed so well in the last few seasons, I think that's what's going to help them. And that's why I just don't see Liverpool letting go of Fabinho, because I think that if we do, we know very well that we can't just sign Lavia and be done with it. Liverpool know that if Fabinho leaves, we need someone with a lot of more experience coming in, someone like Caicedo, who they're not going to pay for. So I think it's just the same with probably FSG not going to take the risk, even though, I guess they probably are enticed by that 40 million price tag that I keep hearing about. But yeah, I think it would be okay for us to keep Fabinho for another season. And I think I've talked more about Fabinho. Kone, again, I think I agree with what Ray said earlier, and in the fact that if our scouting team has identified Kone as a potential match and someone who can play there, I'm not going to argue against it, because I think ever since Jurgen took over, we've had so many good signings and so many players who turned world class from like mediocre fees. I remember when we signed Robertson for 6 million. I was like, who's Robertson? Why are we signing like a 6 million left back, and then he turns out to be the best in the world? So yeah, I'm not going to argue against it anymore. I've learned my lesson. So the only thing is obviously the fact that Kone as well is injury prone, and that he's also injured at the moment. I think we've had problems in the past with injury prone players. So again, it comes down to what Klopp and Schmadtke think about him. If we sign him and he can play for 2 months, but we know that he has the potential to be the replacement for Fabinho, I think there's no problem. Okay, you get him, he doesn't play for 2 months, you recover him just in time, for the European campaign. But yeah, we'll see.
Definitely. There's a comment here. What about Tchouaméni? I was a big advocate for this guy. I love him. I'd love him at Liverpool, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
He signed for Real Madrid for 8 million. After 1 year, they're definitely not letting go of him. Race, if you want to have your say on that as well. There's another transfer supposedly leaving Liverpool as well. Caoimhin Kelleher. Wolves are targeting Caoimhin Kelleher with Liverpool valuing the goalkeeper at around 20 million. Is that someone you want to see? I assume you don't want to see him leave the club, but do you think that's probably best for him or best for both parties? 20 million extra for us to potentially afford someone. And do you really rate Adrian as a good enough backup? So what's your thoughts on that situation?
I don't really rate Adrian as a good backup right now. I know he wouldn't ideally play as much, but since we're in the Europa League and maybe there's a chance that maybe Adrian get a game or two here. I don't know. I wouldn't want to see him as our main primary backup. But with Kelleher, I think he's definitely good enough to be a number one goalkeeper somewhere else, maybe at a lower level Premier League side or abroad or wherever that may be. He's certainly. I know he had a terrible game in the last game for us against Southampton. He wasn't good there. But don't let that one-off game when, our season was already decided, kind of let that fool what how good of a player he is or the quality player that he was. And of course, we saw the previous season, he was our main cup goalkeeper, of course, in the League Cup in that penalty shootout, hitting that one. And, it was, I think 20 mil, I feel like that's a little bit low. Maybe I think we could maybe get a little bit more for him, especially since this maybe, who knows with Fabinho and whatnot, but this would be like our primary kind of top selling or highest priced outgoing transfer. So we'd kind of want to get a little more for him. And, the team that he'd be going to, he would ideally be their number one goalkeeper. So I think that would be kind of a bargaining chip. Like, hey, if you want this guy as your number one, you got to pay up for him because he's a good player and he's only 24 years old and he's had Premier League experience. Of course, goalkeepers, have their primes really don't start until maybe their late 20s and sometimes 30s. So he's already got that experience. I think that price tag, and I don't know if that was our valuation of it, but I think we could get more than that for him. Would certainly be sad to see him go. I wonder if we would kind of look to pick up another cheap backup somewhere. But again, we signed Adrian to a contract extension here for another year. Maybe there's some youth goalkeeper that they feel confident about. They could take over that number 2 goalkeeper spot. That remains to be seen. But I think it'd be best for all parties. I think Kelleher knows that he's good enough to get more minutes somewhere else instead of playing behind the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah, that's just it. To be fair, he's not really going to get that game time just because he's behind Alisson, and can't really discredit his ability for it. But do you really want to be, wasting your career essentially, or wasting your ability just being a backup keeper? And can't really say he will be. Anissa's not a big fan of Adrian. We can see can't stand Adrian. Haven't forgiven him for Atletico. And to be fair to Adrian, I'm not a big fan of him either. But to be fair to him, he has played 2 finals and won them both. But yeah, there's not really much you can say on that. Ahmed, Hamid, you've commented this about 5 or 6 times. Llorente from Atletico Madrid. How many you can have you say on that? Marcus Llorente, assume that is. And what's your thoughts on the Kelleher situation as well? Good move for him?
Lorenzo, I haven't really watched him, so I can't really comment on him like that. Yeah, I haven't really watched him. Is he gonna? I don't know. I don't know what to say about him. I've barely watched him. I've barely paid attention to Atletico because watching Atletico makes you want to fall asleep. Honestly, because the way they play football is just it's so negative. It is so negative. So I'm good. But he's a good suggestion. You never know. You know what I mean? He might come in and he might be able to do something that's gonna make me eat my words. So if he's good enough, then hey, by all means, come on board. You know, we might need you if Fabinho leaves. About the whole Kelleher situation, I don't want people to think I want to keep everyone. I'm only wanting to keep the players that's going to be essential for the year to give us time. And I think with Kelleher's situation is like, I want to ask you guys this before I continue speaking. Who else can we go out there and really get to replace him? That's going to be good enough to play when, Alisson is not playing. That's just a question for the board. Like, before I continue talking, I just want to know.
It's tricky because sorry, I'll chime in. It's tricky because like a backup goalkeeper, like, it's hard to get players to sign on to be like that. Like when we signed Adrian at first, like he knew that he was taking a backup role, and of course we've seen, he's a backup level goalkeeper. So yeah, you're right. I'll let you continue, but it's just hard to find a player who will accept that role.
Yeah, I've got a point as well. Sorry, they have to be homegrown as well because our squad is so limited for that non-homegrown spot. I think giving Adrian a contract was one of the worst decisions ever, taking up one of those non-homegrown spots. And yeah, there's not really many names. There's this one here. He's already part of our academy. Can't really name too many, to be honest.
Well, I think the best choice would just be to have, hopefully there's some keeper in our academy that would, they see is good enough they could take over. I think that's the best case scenario for taking over that number 2, which is of course how Kelleher got into that role as well.
Exactly. So so that you guys' silence and the comments obviously not saying anything apart from one person, it kind of explains the whole situation of why I don't want him to go just yet. I think he needs to stay because I believe that Klopp is actually going to give him more minutes this season, this season, because like he said, we are in Europa League. He might even be in our keeper until the quarterfinals, semi-finals, because I believe we have a good enough defense, a good enough team that any team that we face should not give us a problem. Honestly, it should not give us a problem. FA Cup, that could be his his tournament. Carling Cup, that can be his tournament as well. So I think he's going to get a lot more minutes than people actually think. But it's really down to him if he's patient enough to be like, you know what, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for one more season, and then I'm gonna leave next season because he's still young. Honestly, let's be honest. He's still a young player. It's not like next season he's gonna lose his value. No, he's not. That value is gonna go up. Now imagine, I said this last time I was speaking about him. Imagine he plays well. That throughout the whole season he plays excellent. All that means is he's gonna get more teams wanting him, and Liverpool's gonna get more for him. We can charge team 30 to 40 mil for him if he has a good season. I believe he will. So those are the benefits of why I will say I would want him to stay. But I can also understand why he would want to go because he's a young guy. He's been behind Alisson. Last season, Klopp really didn't done him dirty. He should have played more games last season than he actually did. Alisson should have got some rest. I didn't see why he needs to play him in the FA Cup and in the Carling Cup. It didn't make no sense at all for him to be there. So I think that I can see both sides of it, but if I'm looking at it just as a fan as Liverpool, I would keep him for one more season. Yeah.
Mihai, what's your take on it? We got another comment from Jen saying we don't want to put our faith in Adrian. Do you want to put your faith in Adrian, Mihai?
No, I think he's the type of player that you just can't rely on. I think he's proved that over and over again. I remember even in the title-winning season, I think that was the year where that pass he gave to Ings against West Ham, we were 2-0 up at the 80th minute, everything going well, no problem, and then he just passed the ball to Ings, who scored in an open goal, and then the last 10 minutes were a bit tense. You had the Atletico game, you had the I don't even remember now. It was like so many games where
You
we
can, you
just
can
don't
even
feel
find the
safe.
Super Cup when, although we won it and he saved the penalty and saved us in the penalty shootout, he was rubbish. He gave away a penalty. Was it Giroud who scored first? It is such an easy goal for him, and yeah, like you said, he's mistake prone, isn't he?
Yeah, and you pass the ball back to him, and it's a mistake waiting to happen. I think as soon as he tries to we try to play it out from the back, then he's not the type of goalkeeper you want there. And I think you could definitely keep Kelleher, but obviously increase his minutes. I think that's the thing now. We've discussed it, and I think the comments said it already, and Harmony as well. You can give Kelleher some matches in the Europa League. You can play him in the Carabao Cup, just like you played him. I think at the beginning of the season, Klopp can very well tell him, like it was in the quadruple run season. You played the Carabao Cup, the whole campaign is yours. You play the FA Cup, maybe at least the first 2-3 matches. You play Europa League, at least the group stage. I think we can definitely play him there, and I think we need to make that kind of compromise. I know maybe Jurgen wants to play Ali just to be safe, to play a standard 11, maybe to send a message that we're not just sending in the reserves, but I think it's a compromise that we have to make, because you would want to keep him because he has the potential to be a replacement for Alisson. And if you want to replace Ali in the next few years, you need to pay again a lot of money for a goalkeeper is going to be as good as he was. So I think you already have Kelleher there. Just make a compromise, give him some more minutes, and keep him.
Definitely. We're going to sum up the stream there, and we could give our final thoughts as well. There is a comment here. Do you think Thuram and Kone is a better investment than Caicedo? We're going to be touching on more of those topics throughout the transfer window. So get liking, get subscribing as well with notifications on. We're going to be streaming every day from 7:30 and onwards. So yeah, final thoughts. We're going to go to everyone. Who do you want to see? Give us names. Who do you want to see at the club? Who do you want to see leave the club? I'll go first. I think Caicedo would be ideal. I'd love him. And Dame, I did bring up a comment earlier. LFC transfer sort of exclusive. We were speaking with Jack Tolbert. I don't want to pronounce his name incorrectly. And he said Caicedo would be open to moving elsewhere, not just Chelsea. So he would definitely be my number one. But can we afford him? Probably not. Outgoings, Henderson. I know Harmony said you kind of regret players leaving. You don't want to say goodbye to them too early. I've been sick of this guy for the past 3 years, so he can go. And Kelleher, I'm not so sure on. Yeah, so Henderson, maybe Fabinho at the right price, but yeah, Race, we'll go to you next.
I was going to say, with Harmony talking about Kelleher, he made some great points about, his fee really isn't going to, it can really only go up from here, I think, unless he has a complete abysmal season. He's going to get some more games with Europa League and, of course, the League Cup and FA Cup as well. Yeah, with in terms of the midfield, I would like to see Kone in. I know his injury history isn't great, and of course he's injured right now, but I would only like to see Kone in if we get another midfielder in as well, and Fabinho stays, because I think you don't want to rely upon these new players too much. And of course, we've touched on Fabinho. I think him leaving along with Henderson would just leave our midfield in a state of uncertainty. So I would like to see Kone in. I don't think he's a perfect fit for maybe our number 6 role, but again, he's a young player and we can kind of mold him and coach him, and Klopp can get these transfers going and he gets them right. For the other midfielder, I guess I don't know if Thuram is still on the table, but I'd like to see maybe some interest go back with him. I mean, he's just from a physical profile, I think he would be a really good fit in our team, and I think would be kind of the long-term answer in that number 6, even if Kone would come in as well. I would like to see our interest kind of, get some interest back in him. And again, if you kind of put those transfer numbers together, maybe that's kind of equals the price that maybe a Caicedo would cost. And like I said before, I think there's value in having multiple players come in and working them and seeing if one of them can really hit, if not both.
And Harmony, what players do you want to see come in, and which ones do you want to go
out? Like everyone said, Kone will be ideal. In the dream world for me, it would be Kone and keep Fabinho. that's just perfect. Honestly, that's just perfect. But unfortunately, we live in reality, and That's not gonna happen. With the owners that we have, I would say, I think Lavia is gonna be an absolute gem. If you really watched what this guy did last season in that rubbish Southampton team, you would understand the levels of what this kid can become within the next 1-2 years. Because if he's that good at 19, imagine this guy at 24, 25, 27, when he's hitting his peak, he's going to be dangerous. So if you have that player already in your team, you ain't got to go out and spend another 80, 90. And by the time he's probably 24 or 25, we don't know how much the fees are going to go up, because they're already ridiculous now anyways. You know what I mean? So the fee might even be 125 mil for this guy. You don't even know, because the price will just keep getting inflated every single season. So it just makes no sense. I feel like that would be a great investment for Liverpool to make, to bring him in, keep Fabinho. I'm going to say again, keep Fabinho. Hendo can go. We've got enough leaders. I would love him to stay, but I can understand why he wants to go. Father time is coming along. Easy paycheck, sitting in the bank, you ain't gonna get taxed, you're fine. Cool. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. But Fabinho has to stay for at least one more season just to embed in Lavia, because that's gonna be a great teacher, a great mentor to learn from. Look at Real Madrid. They've still got Cruz, and they've still got Modric. And they've got all these young midfielders that they have there, and they still kept them. Why? Because they're trying to embed something in these young players to know, okay, listen, the reason why we still have these guys, because look at their standards, look at the way they train, look at the way they are on and off the pitch. That is what we expect from you now. And you're learning from this guy. You can just literally pick them up to the side, but listen, I want to learn that, how would I get myself here? How would I do here? And they can give you these gems. And by the time they leave, you're so ready, because you've been watching them, you've been studying them. And you can even see like parts of the games where you can tweak and make it better. You get what I'm trying to say? So that learning is going to be so important for a player that we're going to bring in. That is the reason why I want to keep Fabinho. And I saw someone earlier on comment, who told Fabinho? Fabinho was playing for at least 3-4 years before he came to Liverpool. So he had that time to learn. He didn't need anyone to teach him. You know what I'm saying? Lavia only been playing for one season. He needs someone to teach him. He needs someone to kind of guide him to be the player that he's going to be, and maybe he can even improve himself. So that is why I would go for Lavia and will keep Fabinho. Again, keep him. Chain him up, put him in the basement, anywhere, just to do not let him go. Not yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've grasped now Harmony's a big fan of Fabinho. But YNWA 66, evening, fellas. Hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. I'm sure we all are. How else would you want to spend your evening other than watching an LFC transfer room stream? And Mihai, final thoughts as well. Who do you want to see come into the club? There's a few names I completely forgot about as well. Levi Colwill, I saw someone bring up. I'm not too sure about Chalobah.
Yeah, I was actually
Levi Colwill. What's your thoughts on our transfer window now, Mihai?
I was actually gonna ask you if you want me to tell you the dream signings or just the realistic ones, because obviously, yeah,
go for both. Go for both. Dream and realistic.
I think we definitely could, if we wanted to, if FSG wanted to, we definitely could and have the funds to sign both Caicedo, Colwill, and maybe another midfielder. But then it's obviously not going to happen. We're not going to sign anyone like that. So I would love to get Colwill, if you mentioned him. I think, again, it would be great, but I don't see how it's going to happen. Again, he's going to be fairly expensive. And on top of that, he already is at Chelsea, and I think Chelsea at this moment can offer him a lot more guaranteed minutes than we can. And I think that's his number one wish. So I think he wouldn't leave Chelsea at the moment. I don't really see how. Especially now they have a new manager, they have a plan. They're probably gonna be a lot better than they were last season. With Lavia, yeah, I absolutely again agree with Harmony. I think Lavia would be a great signing. I think you maybe feel a bit more of a certainty with him than Kone, in terms of both having a Premier League experience and not being injury prone. And we've seen him already in the Premier League, and as Harmony said, he wasn't arguably the worst side that played in the Premier League last year, and he still had an amazing season. Everyone saw him, and I think if you want to sign Lavia, I think this is the moment, because next summer I know that City clause that they have with him comes into play, and then they can basically match any offer that comes in for Lavia. So they're gonna have the upper hand, and probably if he'd have a choice between City and another club, he'd just go to City as he was an academy graduate. I think absolutely sign Lavia this summer, and then another midfielder and another center back. But then again, it depends on who leaves. I think if Hendo and Fabinho both stay, then you sign a DM and a center mid and a center back. If Hendo leaves, but yeah, I know Harmony's already laughing. I think I'm trying to.
Oh no, he can go. I don't mind him going. Like I said, I don't mind Henderson going.
Yeah, no, I was just referring to us buying another 3 players. I think that's crazy. I don't see us doing that necessarily. I think the problem here is that at the beginning of the summer, when I was saying, and especially after we signed Szoboszlai, we've already signed Alexis McAllister, who's an amazing player. I remember saying after we gave up on Jude, I was saying, okay, if it's not Jude, then it has to be McAllister. But do we pay that much money on him? I was thinking he'd be at least double of what he actually was. And when we got him for 35, I was, excited. I was thinking amazing piece of business again. When we got Szoboszlai, it was like a statement signing, because we just went and paid the release clause if we wanted the guy, and we didn't wait and try to get the price down and stuff that you would expect from FSG. And at the beginning of the summer, when we started off like that, I was hoping that maybe without the Champions League football and maybe with the midfield reinforcements, we could try and challenge for the league. But now, if you're going to sell both, if Fabinho somehow leaves, or if we don't sign another center back or another center mid, I don't see us necessarily going for it. I don't think we can. So yeah, I don't know. I think we need to keep. I think that's what's so important about Fabinho, is that you need to keep some of the core midfield and bring in reinforcements, but not just ship everyone that you have right now in midfield and just bring in 3 or 4 mids and try to challenge for the league, because it's not going to happen like that. That's why we got into this position, because we didn't reinforce the midfield progressively as we should have. I remember last season, and that's still shocking to me, we wanted to get Caoimhin. He came in, he saw the ground, he was impressed, he wanted to sign, and then Madrid just came and offered him a bunch of more money, and then he just goes off to Madrid. Okay, I get it. That's the first player he wanted to sign. It didn't happen. But what did you do? You were like, you know what? I think Naby Keita will be just as good for another season. We're going to keep him. We know he's injury prone, but he might just be all right this season. And we all know what happened after that. We had a plan to sign a midfielder. We didn't get the one that we wanted. And then we just didn't sign anyone else. And that was a mistake. And we knew it, I think, from the moment it happened. But obviously, we didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. So that's what I know I talked a long time. I don't even know if I made my point necessarily, but what I was trying to say, do not just sell everyone else and then just bring in 3 or 4 mids, and then you think you've done you've had a great summer. I think you need to keep some of that core, bring in the youngsters, and then let them develop, and then you can challenge in 1 or 2 seasons. You can be back where you were.
Definitely, and it just seemed the logical sort of reasoning amongst the fan base. And Ken Patchy here says, why sell Henderson when Liverpool are short of homegrown players? The rule actually kind of gets twisted, so people think just because we got less homegrown players means we're not allowed to sign non-homegrown players. You're allowed up to, I think, I could be wrong, about 7 or 8 homegrown players, so that has no impact whatsoever on your non-homegrown players. All it means is you got a short squad going into next season. But anyways, we're going to wrap it up there. This has been going on for 49, 50 minutes. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like, be sure to subscribe as well with notifications on. Going to be streaming every day, 7:30 p.m. and onwards, 7:30 p.m. UK time, sorry. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Thanks for all your contributions. And we'll catch you all in the next stream.